Now you can start.
Got it. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Kellogg. And again, thank you, Lisa, and the rest of the CMAP team. We talk today about the sandwich generation, and we do a lot of different free education programs throughout New Jersey. But this one really touches all of us because time doesn't stop still for any of us. Um, it's hard to really say when do we start caring for our loved ones. Oftentimes there's no set start rule. There's no universal journey. Sometimes we're born into having loved ones around us because we reciprocate what we receive. Sometimes we do caring for people because we are obligated to, because we've made promises. And that really is reflective on a lot of the journey that we'll be talking about today. We're going to take a deep dive into what the sandwich generation is. What does that mean? How does that affect the elders that we try to support and ourselves as the primary caregiver? Trick question. When are we ever going to consider ourselves old? We never are. We buy billions of dollars worth of hair dye to concealant, Botox, testosterone pills, age defying. That doesn't just affect us, that affects our loved ones. Time doesn't stop for anyone. And sometimes that transition, it gets complicated. Oftentimes us being the care receiver to our parents, it can be hard when the transition comes that they need certain assistance. Why do they need assistance? Well, we all get there as we age. Systems change. Our vision oftentimes decreases. Our skin is not quite as elastic. Cardiac conditions, our heart doesn't pump quite as effectively as before. We need to be able to not just hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Looking at our parents, looking at their parents' past medical history. Are any diagnoses that run in the family that we should be prepared for? No one has a crystal ball, but being able to lean into some of these potential issues so that, again, Lisa and I spoke about it, we can plan for almost anything. It's just the pivoting part that gets really challenging, and it only gets more challenging if there's not a plan or we talk about things. We talk a lot about what normal aging is, specifically cognitively. Normal aging is the slowing of the thought process. It's not the stopping or the inability to. We need to be able to talk to our physicians. What is going on? Oftentimes, if we start seeing changes, it's because of low-hanging fruit, not just the D word, the dementia. It could be medication error. It could be medications that worked for us for a very long time, but is less effective now. A urinary tract infection, taking the right pill at the right time. If there was a fall, bumping our head. All of these things can develop over time, or there can be rapid changes. So we need to be able to steer into them. What we just talked about, most of those conditions are chronic conditions. Chronic conditions are diagnoses that can't be cured. They can be managed. Being able to have an optimal scenario, possible and problematic, so that the doctor, much like ourselves, has a toolkit to be able to give us as much independent to foster that autonomy. Why is it so important to be able to talk about things? Again, we can plan for anything, and we talk about these chronic conditions because the first part of being able to care for ourselves is the clinical component. That's about being able to have a face-to-face conversation with our healthcare provider. In the macro setting, that doctor needs to know what is going on with us. Are we caring for not just ourselves, but a spouse? Do we look after grandchildren? Are we driving still? And our reflexes aren't quite as quickly as they used to be. We can't control what's going on, but we can plan for that. 75% of what we deal with right now can be managed through lifestyle. When we learn, we plan, we adjust, we can live to be able to be in the manner. But by adjusting ourselves, this goes on to oftentimes the primary caregiver or the local family. Some of the most common things that our loved ones do for us who are local are going out and doing simple errands, shopping for us, attending doctor's appointments, helping manage finances, being able to help get us from point A to point B, transportation, or just be that communication conduit, making sure everyone understands what is said, what it means, how does it apply to them now, and also for the future. I think it's important that we all are on our independent journey, but oftentimes we share paths. This is a graph that clearly shows the older we get, the greater likelihood of the assistance we're going to need, the average hours of care that someone provides. Oftentimes, this goes back to the sandwich generation. This goes back to the family member. What is the sandwich generation? Well, the sandwich generation is what we get when we have changing care needs for the people that we care for in our circle of influence. When it comes to people that are directly physically around us and sometimes different in length and farther away, when we combine the people needing more help and us being available and want to support them, that equals the sandwich generation. That was first documented in 1981 by Dorothy Miller. And that's exactly what you see. The picture there is that when a couple are concerned about their parents, older adults, and also raising younger children. But in 1992, it took even a deeper dive by Carol Abia. She broke it into three different types, the traditional, what we just talked about, but also talking about the club sandwich. We are all living older. It's not just people in their 30s and 40s. It's not uncommon for people to live past 70s to 80s to 90s. The sandwich generation for the club are people that are in their 50s or 60s or even their 30s or 40s that aren't just caring for their parents, children, but could be now worrying and taking care of grandchildren all at the same time. Also, the open faced, which has anyone. We've had people come into the office saying, my next door neighbor, I've lived next to him for 30 years. He doesn't have any family. I look at him like I look after my own dad, but things are changing. How can we help? We all get there from here. We're going to need more assistance, and it's better to be able to plan for that. And eventually in 2006, this has gotten so very common that it was added to the Webster's Dictionary. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Again, the Pew Research Center and National Alliance for Caregivers originally said that the baby boomers were the sandwich, the people taking care of their parents, which was the greatest generation. And then coming up was Generation X. But again, time doesn't stop for anybody. 2020, there was 58 million or 18% of the population in the United States that was over the age of 65. It's anticipated by 2050 that over 23% of the American public is going to be over the age of 65. Doing math, that's over 10,000 people every single day turning 65 for the next 18 years. I'm a visual person. That's a big number. But think of yourself the last time if you went to Giant Stadium for any program. That's not looking at the football field or the soccer field. That's everybody being in one hospital bed through that entire circumference every single day. This is a mind-boggling number. Who are these people that really comprise mostly of the sandwich generation? I'm looking around and it's pretty much statistically appropriate. 66% of women are the ones driving this bus, taking care of their parents, taking care of their partner's parents. In between 148 billion and 188 billion dollars is of unpaid labor happen every single year by women supporting their loved ones. That's wonderful and generous, but it will actively have a negative outcome on them. MetLife and the National Alliance for Caregivers shared that women can lose up to $300,000 of benefits in their lifetimes because of not being able to accept promotions because of the known time limitations, being looked over promotions because they've had to take time off to be able to take care of loved ones. Again, this is just the benefits that they receive, the reimbursements that they've owned, and the Social Security that they can accrue. These women are 6 times more likely to develop depression and anxiety than those women in the same age cohort that aren't actively needing to take care of their parents or their partner's parents. And finally, it has a physical negative outcome on them because 2/3 of those women don't go to their own primary doctors and have anticipated planned tests done to make sure that they're okay. Why is this happening? The sandwich generation. Why is there such turbulence on one piece of bread versus the other piece of bread? Because we don't talk. The adult children, there was a study done by care.com, shared that 54% of the adult children polled in a 500 person survey would share that they would rather talk to their own children about the birds and the bees than talk to their parents about their future care needs. We need to be able to break down some of these barriers. And what are we going to do? Because the only thing that's harder than having these conversations is by not having them, waiting until now we're in crisis. Sometimes by not talking, we're actually making decisions of what we don't want. We need to be able to tease out what's most important and have detailed conversations. Let's demystify this a little bit. If I went down to, or if any of us went down to our basement and we look down and there's a puddle on the ground, and we look up and there's a drip coming from a pipe, when are we going to call the plumber? We're not going to call the plumber in a month or two when it's more convenient. We're going to call him now because we also know the next time we go down there, we can have water up to our kneecaps if we don't. We need to be able to talk about things. If our head, our heart, our gut is saying that I'm seeing changes, we need to make sure that we lean into them, because oftentimes, like the physical and the cognitive changes of chronic conditions, it makes all the difference in the world by having early interventions. What's that old saying? Measure twice, cut once. And again, talking about what's possible, probable, and problematic, so that we're not speaking for the elders that we love, we're just amplifying their voices. By not talking about these things, and many of the elders we serve, I don't want to be a burden, but by not talking about them, it doesn't make the problems disappear. We need to be able to steer into those by saying the word I, and we're going to talk about semantics, how it really does make a difference. By not being able to help out, we're putting ourselves at risk for caregiver burnout or caregiver syndrome. Because if we don't talk about things, emotions are contagious. When we're around happy people, we're drawn. We want to be around happy people. When we're around people that we care about that are ill, we start worrying about them. It gives us concern. What do? We self-soothe. Oftentimes we eat more. Sometimes we eat less. The likelihood of isolation, depression, and anxiety multiplies exponentially. People drink more, use drugs, not being able to be proud of yourself of the accomplishments. By not acting, it's not just, oh, I'm fine. It's having a negative effect on us. We need to make sure our loved ones know that we're all in this together. Again, caregiver burnout or caregiver syndrome. By not addressing these things, we're setting ourselves up and our loved ones for future issues. If we don't control the stress that we're actively under, we're getting a greater likelihood of having that cortisol pump, which is our hormone that adds inflammation to our own arteries, to our fingers, wherever there's joints. We need to be able to talk about us, because if they're already going through some of these chronic conditions, it's better for them to let us in, and they're still looking out for us by them helping us. And we need to make it so that they understand by us helping them, they're really helping us. The approach is going to be vitally important, and we'll talk about that in a minute. What do? We take a deep breath. First things first, we need to be able to take a deep breath. Self-care isn't an extravagance, it's a necessity. We need to be able to look out for ourselves. There's two types of focus that we need to cope with. And how do we cope? The first is problem-focused coping. That's with recruiting outside services, talking to experts at CMAP, talking to your doctor that this is what we're going through right now, learning as much as you can, coming up with new systems, recruiting care to be able to help. The other type of coping, which is emotional focused coping, is being able to do the self-care. We all have our emotional buckets. What makes us as a caregiver, our true essence, feel good? I love gardening. If it means exercising, taking a bath, reading a book, we need to be able to go on that mental brain break to disengage, step off that hamster wheel for a minute to be able to put our feet literally and figuratively back on the ground. Because when we're able to step off, take that deep breath, it serves us, and we're able to lengthen our own focus. We're able to give us more clear perspective and also reset for what's most important for our loved ones. If we have a partner, we need to be able to talk to them. This is what I'm going through right now. Talking to them, what is going on is probably going to affect them at some capacity. What are these role challenges that we're facing right now? What are they comfortable supporting me, support my parents? What things are they not comfortable with? Making sure that just because we talked about having a role established every month, or if you start feeling, again, your head, your heart, your gut changing, them feeling available, checking in, because people do have that right to say, this is getting to be too much. And even though that you are not holding the clipboard and people around you are, specifically in this case, your significant other is holding that clipboard, even though it might be different than you, it's okay, because they're pitching in, they're showing affection, and they're helping. If there's children in the sandwich generation, kids get more information than we ever imagined they do. First off, letting them know that if there's something going on, it's not their fault. Emotion, again, is contagious. They're not going to know what's going on, but they're going to feel that stress in that room. Being able to, again, understand that they may not be able to say grandma's getting sick, but they're going to feel that something is different cognitively and intellectually, educationally, meeting them where they are emotionally, letting them know that there's going to be juggling going on. It doesn't mean that we don't love each other. Sometimes we love each other so much, we're here to support. There's going to be fire drills. In my family, we always talk about Team Kellogg. Who is going to do what to lighten that load? Who's going to throw in an extra load of laundry for grandma? Who's going to do the dishes? Who's going to be able, so again, at the end of the day, it's not falling on just one person. Kids enjoy rules. Many hands make light work. Smaller kids, make sure that they do different artwork, putting something up on the refrigerator, really wanting to help grandma, making sure that all the toys are put away and up off the floor. So when she walks through, we can limit the risk of her stepping on something and falling that we don't want her to have happen. Discussing things with family. Again, make sure we go in and we're trying to foster positive emotion. Possible, probable, problematic. What is their most important thing that keeps them going? What don't we want to have happen in crisis? Having a detailed conversation. What is said, what it means, how it applies. Making sure that we check in now, what's different, what makes sense, what has changed. When we talk to our loved ones, and this is what we do for all of the elders that we serve, is that I give them homework. Before we come back out, give them a blank sheet of paper, and I ask, in one sentence, what is your single definition of your quality of life? What is that thing that makes you on those cold, rainy, nasty days when all you want to do is stay in bed and pull that blanket over your head, makes you want to get up and get moving? That's awfully hard to be able to squeeze everything into one sentence. But oftentimes what's much easier is flipping it over on the other side. What don't you want to have happen? What keeps you up at night? What are your fears? Those are the two bookmarks that need to drive their mature life plan, making sure that everybody in their circle of influence is aware, and making sure that their doctors are aware that all of the care that they receive is there to shepherd and navigate them to maintain those goals. There was a study done by Genworth a few years ago that interviewed the sandwich generation and their parents. 72% of the sandwich generation feel that their parents should have a talk that discusses their future care needs. 69% of those older adults said that they've already discussed with their children their future care needs. Going back to the sandwich generation, only 52% of those sandwich generation people polled felt it was a detailed conversation. Those two bookmarks, that has to drive everything. But once a detailed conversation was had, going back to the sandwich generation, 93% of those people polled have peace of mind, and 95% of those older adults themselves have peace of mind. That's what we need to be able to do. What are some words that we need to be able to stay away from? The first word is you, with the exception of twofold. Other than when I say, I love you, and other than when I say thank you, you develop a speech impediment. You can't say those words. Why is that? It can come from the deepest, warmest part of your heart. But by talking to your parents, you've fallen down twice and you're not taking your meds at the right time. They're going to shut down. It's that knee-jerk reaction. But by saying the word I, which I'm responsible for, I'm allowed to have feelings. I'm concerned about the falls. I'm concerned about the meds being taken at the right time, and I'm not sleeping well at night. I've been raised in a house that we look out for each other. We tell things to each other that we need to hear, not always what we want to hear, but that's because we love each other. That's going to be able to open door for better communication. Another word is the word fine. Just next to that other F-bomb, no one should use the word fine. The word fine is, it's a rainy, crappy day. I'm a little bit more stiff, but I'm still going out for my physical therapy. The word fine is also, I've fallen down, I can't get up, but I'm fine because I can move all of my extremities. What does the word fine mean to the context that we're using? Everybody needs to be able to look through the same set of lenses. That is vitally important. And then finally, the word should. Should is grandiose. Should is you know better. And I will never, ever forget this. And I start giggling from the lady that told me this. Chris, my daughter came into my house and she should all over the place. What are you talking about? I should do my dishes. I should put things away. Who is she to tell me I should? Those are 3 trigger words. Avoid them at all cost. Take that deep breath so we can support them and step into where they are. Again, it's worth a different slide and a new slide, the airplane rule. Taking that deep breath, we need to be able to make sure that we can't help people when we are under terrible stress ourselves. First slide is, when we take that deep breath, oftentimes just take a deep breath. Take 3 deep breaths. No, we need to take 5 deep breaths. 5 deep breaths is going to be able to open up endorphins. When we take 5 slow, deep breaths, our body is going to have an automatic release of endorphins. When we are taking care of our loved one 3 times a day for their benefit and our benefit, give them a slow, gentle hug for 30 seconds. That's going to be able to release oxytocin. It's the cuddle gene. That's going to be able to draw us closer. That's going to give us a longer fuse when things start getting a little bit more challenging. If we don't have other people that can hug, or if our loved ones can get a little bit testy, depending on what they're struggling with, what other things? Touch Hunger and Touch Starve, we really took a deep dive and we learned so much more about this during the pandemic. Being able to self-stimulate, being able to brush your hair, being able to have a weighted blanket, making sure that you don't have any other diagnoses that if we stay in the same spot too long, the weighted blanket could affect blood flow. Making sure, again, we talk about our ability of dealing with stress. Our body will take it into our own hands with 2 fingers, starting underneath the back of your ear, going down your carotid. That's the vagus nerve or parasympathetic nerve. Go all the way down to your shoulder. That's going to release positive endorphins. Being able to have a Zoom call versus just a regular call. 85% of communication is nonverbal. It's not as good as being able to give someone a hug or give them a handshake or be present, but it is something better, and every little bit helps. Again, holding hands with our loved ones, doing nail polish with them, whatever it takes to be able to make them feel valued and ourselves to feel valued and important. And you're worth it, and be kind to ourselves. Set goals for ourselves. It's human nature to want to look up at the hike where we're going. I'm going up the mountain. But it's also vitally important to be able to chip away at steps. Look over your shoulder, how far that you've come. And be kind and be patient with yourself. Being able to have on your calendar what needs to get done today, what needs to get done this week, what needs to get done this month, and what's a long-term goal. What are we going to be able to do? Because what really works at the end of the day, making sure our environment works for us, having systems in place, making sure that we do our calls, strategies, utilizing programs at like CMAP. They have the world in their hands to be able, if they can't help you directly, they can point you in the right direction and trust you with passing along a baton to people that they know, they like, and they trust. Utilizing new technologies out there, having grab bars. It's important that we talk about things. If we see somebody's balance change, that they're not quite as steady on their feet, or we need to make their environment work for them. Somebody said, Chris, I haven't fallen, but I'm watching them. Are you steady on your feet? How is your balance? Do you get the spins? Or a shower bench after a fall, after we fractured. Being able to make sure that people who live alone have an emergency pendant. Many of the people that we support do have that, but my gosh, they take the emergency pendant off. They're getting into the shower. They put their phone, which is always on their person, and put it on the back of the toilet seat. But then they fall in the shower. Again, our Palm Pods, Peace of Mind Pods work for that. There's so many different devices supporting things that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Lean into things. We all have emotional collateral. Where are we going to put it down so that we have our power, control, dignity, and peace of mind wherever we are? It's okay to ask for help sometimes. What are the things that are most important to us? People don't volunteer assistance if they don't mean it. When we ask people for assistance, make sure that we're going to their wheelhouse. I make the bad joke, I need to take my shoes and socks off to count to 20. I'm not going to be the right guy for your power of attorney, but being able to make sure that meals are done, to be able to help out, to go there, write things down, be able to talk things through with your people, that's what's most important. Make sure to delegate to people that they are comfortable and they're willing to help you and the other people in your circle of influence. Obtaining information online. Most of us go to a doctor's appointment because, again, when you're hearing hard conversations, maybe it's a new diagnosis, we're saying yes, yes, yes. Is there any other questions? No. That's when you pull out of the driveway, and that's when the avalanche of questions start. Have somebody there to be able to scribe, be able to ask, and what? What does that mean for me now? What does that mean in the future? How does that affect other diagnoses I have? I have yet to hear a doctor say, thank goodness WebMD is out there. That really helps me out and really makes my clients better. WebMD is written with a perspective that one person has one diagnosis. Never mind all the chronic ones. There's a reason why physicians go to school for as many years as they do, because the interplay, don't just look at that source. And when you're online looking, take a minute and see what the validity is. Who is paying for that publication? 4 out of 5 doctors say, who cares? I laugh that this is probably 5 years ago. I read, a man's beard has 5 times the germs in it than a dog's mouth. I thought, oh my God. And then I thought, my poor wife. And then I thought, okay, Kellogg, keep it together. Read all the way, 3 pages of supporting documentation provided by Puro Inc. What is Puro Inc? Puro Inc. is the parent company of Barbasol, the men's shaving cream company. Of course, they want you to shave off your facial hair or any other type of hair. Make sure when you go to see your doctor, where are they going to steer you that this is where they trust? The information is reliable and trustworthy. Or go to people in your circle of influence that are only looking out for specifically your well-being. If you're a sandwich generation and you're balancing children and aging parents, we're all through this. Looking at those numbers, looking at the money of hours, unpaid services, what can people do? We have all heard we're in this together, and employers want to keep their employees happy. Let them know you're going through a lot. Oftentimes there's A disability alliance. Oftentimes there's employee assistance program, education programs, resources. They can bring somebody in. There's groups out there that would love to do lunch and learns. The company is going to look like a rock star, and it's going to have everybody have more tools in their invisible toolkit to help them along their journey for their children, for their aging parents, making sure that there's counseling services. What are the benefits and HR that I'm entitled to? It's not just that easy 300-page book. What does that mean and how does that apply? Starting to have systems in place. Everybody should have an emergency medical kit. It should not be, oh, Chris, I have my living rule and health proxy. Where is it? It's in the safety deposit box. Well, normally Murphy's Law is going to come knocking Saturday afternoon after the bank is closed, and you're not going to be able to get there. Being able to have it in a sealed envelope that says emergency information. There should be a list of emergency contact, doctors available, diagnoses, allergies, medications. What are your immunes? Because if there's ever a change, again, it has common sense and emotion don't play well together. Having it, everything together, and a copy of an insurance card, identification. You turn that over, no financial information, be able to turn that over. That's everything that emergency medical squad needs to have to make sure that your voice is heard. Again, not an attorney, but we need to make sure that if something happens to our loved ones, we have the ability to do that for them. A health proxy is a person that would make medical decisions on our behalf if we're not able to. A power of attorney is a person that can move our finances around to be able to pay for things or to be able to go for different benefits. A living will is a list of instructions of things that you want and things you don't want under certain circumstances. The last will. This is who gets what. Making sure a trust, if there's finances that we want to try to conserve, where and how are we going to set this up? All of this is in place to avoid the need for guardianship, because the only people who do well in guardianship cases are those attorneys. Big bucks. The Post. Many people tell me, Chris, I have the living will. And what does that mean to you? It means that I don't want anything done. Has anybody talked to you about the Post? The what? Practitioner's order for life-sustaining treatment. I don't know what that is. Do you have a green piece of paper that you signed with your doctor? No. So what happens right now, if God forbid your heart or if your lungs stop beating or breathing? What do you want? Chris, I'm not looking to go anywhere, but if the good Lord calls, I want to be kept comfortable and just let me go. The Pulse is similar to a health proxy and similar to a living will. Coincidentally, your homework assignment, the bookmarks, what is your quality of life and what don't you want to have happen is going to be the first section, goals of care, writing down there. Everybody, your doctor's aware, should guide you towards that, making sure that if something was to happen, what are different medical interventions that you want done? What don't you want to have done? Airway administration, making sure that you want oxygen or having a BiPAP or a CPAP. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation, different decision-making, who gets to make those decisions on your behalf. Make sure it's consistent with what the living will says. Talking, again, even though you signed that, a doctor needs to sign that. Talk to your doctor. You want to have a conversation with a Pulse if you have strong feelings about that. Don't go in and think you're going to have that conversation with them at the end of a yearly physical. You are worth more time. Schedule a conversation with your doctor to have the Pulse conversation. Your doctor needs to sign it for it to be honored. And make sure we utilize the most up-to-date form, which was done in 2019. Again, helpful tips. We want to be able to make sure we look out for ourselves. Again, stretching, taking whatever it takes to step off the hamster wheel, looking at short joke books. I'm a guy, I love my crusty dad jokes. That's just enough to let me step off for a minute to be able to rethink and go on. Do something just for yourself. Doing the dishes every night is not something that you should do for yourself, and that's not me time. Looking at music, fixing things so that it rolls into a holding environment. Sitting down, watching Jeopardy at night, the same place, the same time. When you make coffee, put happy music on, tee yourself up to be able to get through the day. Again, helpful hints continued. Being able to have mindfulness. Again, your mental state achieved by focusing on one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging the feelings and thoughts of our body sensation. I really like this. If you cannot come up with a time to pray, say thank you at the beginning of every meal. If you can't manifest joy, say thank you for the joy that you have. If you can't journal, talk to yourself in the car ride to work. There's no spiritual handbook. Just show up and be kind to yourself. I love that. It doesn't need to make sense to everybody. Nurturing, being kind, supporting yourself is what we need to do. Saying no, I can't, is okay. Can't isn't a bad word. Again, there's so many different supporting programs out there. CMAP, Alzheimer's Association, Nightingale. What are we able to do to delegate some of those things so that we're able to get something off our list so we can go back to the normal balance? Oftentimes, it's adult child and parent, not primary caregiver and parent. Being able to go out, join different support groups, be available. Being able to go out and enjoy yourself. You're worth it. Step off the merry-go-round. Do something that makes you happy. Again, whether it be gardening, going on a mini vacation, learning about what respite is. How can that serve you? It's not a sign of weakness. It's about self-preservation and strength because you want to be your best person. Plan and prepare. What does all of this mean? Self-care is paramount. Some of the best care providers for the ones they love are the worst care receivers for themselves. That is the number one thing that I hope everybody takes away. Learn about supports in the community. Simplify your environment and your world so that it's more streamlined and make it sustainable because it is possible to have your power, control, dignity, and peace of mind throughout the aging process when you have a mature life plan. I've thrown a lot at you in 45 minutes, but thank you so much for the opportunity for letting me share so much.
This is great, Chris. Thank you so much. I saw that Barbara did share in the chat about the.
Yep, but it's not anonymous. You can do it
you got
anonymously.
the hairy eyeball on me on that one when you said it was anonymous because that was the one thing.
Yeah, no,
think
you can do it anonymous. I mean, you can do it, but the person who is getting questioned about their driving can request to submit it.
Chris, this is very good. We did have a participant, they just hopped off, but stayed the whole time. So I'm gonna say that you helped that person and you helped me today. So thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
I know you guys are, I've shared over and over that you are the crown jewel of Jersey's community support and what can be done when it's planned out and thought of and supported well. As a grassroots project, haha, hee hee, in your spare time, I do think being able to reach out to some of the corporate entities that occupy Princeton and doing, again, lunch and learns for those people in the sandwich generation, knowing what the resources that you bring, the partners that support you and provide out in the community. I think that is really an untapped resource that in your spare time, ha ha, he he.
Yeah, no,
should
we
be
have
thought of.
something, we need funding, but we have something in the works to help with folks who are going to eventually transition. So so we have heeded that. But yes, are looking to like offer folks who are more transitioning to retirement could be in that catchment of the sandwich generation. So thank you.
No, you're right. I
Okay.
know Princeton University does a Princeton Senior Resources program that, again, you guys shared my information with, and thank you for
Yeah.
that. And we've been out there and they were quite pleased with everything. It's just what we go through and the numbers,
Right.
again, are just staggering. We need to, from micro
Yeah.
to macro, how are we going? There's a lot of elders coming that deserve better, a lot of sandwich generation people that need help
Yeah.
and guidance because, you know, I can change the oil in my car. That doesn't make me a mechanic.
That's true. Very true. Well, thank you again. Thank you again. Yes, we're on to our next session. But great.
Stay
Thanks,
well,
Chris.
everybody.
Okay,
Take
be
care.
well.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Chris.